This story is like more than 25 years in the making, and I'm so happy to finally be at this point. And it has to do with my long career playing one of those things, the upright bass, which is difficult to make loud in rock and roll situations. And so I have finally built the upright bass pickup of my dreams. So I'm going to tell this story here at my shop a little bit, where I'm going to make them, and also at my home studio where we can hear them and see some of the other versions of these things that I've bought and messed around with in the past. So let's go there first. That was me just noodling around on this new pickup here in the room. I was plugged into a little amp, and I was just letting the condenser mic get the room and the amp. We're going to do some more official sound tests later, but you can see this is the basic new pickup that I've designed, and there's two versions of it, ceramic and neodymium, which we'll talk about later. And this is based on a bunch of pickups that I've owned over the years, which I'm also going to show you later, and finding the best and worst parts of them, removing the worst, using the best. But I wanted to tell you that in case you didn't know, I started as an electric bass player, and then I switched to the upright bass, but I couldn't afford an upright bass, so I built my own first one, and it was like a solid body thing. And thinking like a bass guitar, I put a magnetic pickup on it. I use these pickups that were by this company that's making this weird rail system for guitars. They're long gone, but they made these individual little pickups that I was able to modify into this bridge. And so the idea of a magnetic pickup was always in my mind for upright basses. But then when I got my first real upright bass, there wasn't really anything available. So I got a piezo like everybody else does, and it sounds good. Right. I mean, I'm not a huge fan of piezos, but they do sound okay. But the problem I had with it is I couldn't play loud rock and roll music with it. When it started getting loud, it got too thin, and it was a feedback nightmare. I tried building all sorts of mutes and bezels and stuff for my bass to try to tamp this thing down so it wouldn't just feedback, but it just sounded horrible in live situations, in high volume situations. So I had to do something better, and I started the search for magnetic pickups, which brings us all back here full circle and into this design. But why don't we go back to my shop, and I'm going to tell you what this pickup has to do for me in order to succeed, and then we'll build it. First and foremost, it has to be a magnet, not a piezo. And second, that magnet has to be passive, not active. I don't want any circuitry, I don't want any 9-volt batteries, I don't want any of that stuff. It has to mount to my bass easily without marring it. I don't want to drill holes, I don't want to screw in brackets. I just want to be able to put the thing on and then take it off when I'm not using it. And I want the 1/4-inch jack to be below the strings, not coming off where the pickup is, so it's out of my way. And I want that 1/4-inch jack to be on a metal plate that touches all 4 strings, because that metal plate will be part of the ground circuit, and that will help with noise. Noise, of course, is an issue, so I want to make sure that that box and all those coils in there are really well shielded, right? While we're at it, why don't we make it a humbucker to have even more noise canceling options there? The poles I want to make sure are very wide, because every bass has just like a little bit of a different setup, and also these strings really move back and forth quite a bit while they're being plucked. So we want to have a big wide surface. But this gets to the most important part of it, is each of those poles should be individual poles that can be individually adjusted, so you can balance out and round out the volume and the sound of the strings. This is the most important part of this. But while it does all that, of course I want it to be bulletproof and easy to maintain, right? So I want it to be something that if it does break, like if the jack goes or the cord goes, the cable goes, you can fix it yourself. All these parts should be readily available. And of course, it should be affordable, because you should be able to have nice stuff that doesn't break the bank. So all that criteria is based on my couple decades of playing the upright bass live and loud, and finding faults in all these pickups that I had purchased and whatnot. So first off, of course, like I mentioned, I started with, and I'm going to try not to mention any brands here, I don't want to upset anybody or name drop or anything, but I started with the typical piezo ceramic pickup, this wedges in the bridge, and I already explained all the problems with that. And then I found this guy in Germany that was making magnetic pickups. You can see what he would do is get measurements off of your bass and make them specifically for the poles. And he makes, this is my first magnetic pickup, and it's actually really good, but it's sort of specific to my K bass, so it maybe doesn't work as well on some other basses, and it doesn't have some of the adjustability and variability I have. What it has is really nice is this mounting system that goes up with some Velcro underneath the fingerboard. And the other thing it came with was a blending box, so you could plug your piezo and this into the blending box and blend the two of them together. And that box broke years and years and years ago, and this is something that I made with just 2 volume knobs to do that job for me. But honestly, I found myself using the magnet most of the time. So this is pretty good, a little bit low output, a little bit not as versatile as I wanted, and not as adjustable as I wanted. Before I bought that, I had long taken apart my electric upright bass and parted it out, and I tried making some different crude little boxes that used those pickups that I could Velcro onto the ends. And you know, it worked, it didn't work, whatever, but you can see this is like evidence of this archaeological dig into my mind of working on this. The other thing that a lot of people do, like rockabilly guys used to do it, is they buy the split P-bass pickups and they make a bracket for them so it mounts at an angle and it kind of sort of gets the strings a little bit. And I messed around trying with that. I never got anything that I thought was good enough for me. Then I was really excited to find out that there was this American company that was making a magnetic pickup, and I bought this thing a long time ago, and it's okay, but the biggest faults it has is that the poles are too small. They are mildly adjustable, but it mounts for crap. So you would have to just sort of Velcro it on to the end of your fingerboard. It would never sit good. And also you would just sort of zip tie this to the string, so it wasn't really grounding good across all the other strings. It made a little noise and stuff. It lacked a little bit of output. It never really did what I wanted to do. Now, in defense of this company who's still out there making products, it looks like what they're making nowadays is better when they were making then, but it's still not what I'm looking for, and I still think it's lacking in some fundamental places. But they do seem to do really good work. And then I found the best one I ever found. I'll show you some screenshots here. It's on my aluminum bass, and this was a guy in the Czech Republic that was making these pickups. I don't even know how I found them. There's a lot of translations of web pages. This is back, before it was so easily readily available to translate stuff, and I managed to get this guy to make this pickup for me, and it does almost everything I want, but the biggest fault with this one is it is active, and so it has a 9-volt battery involved, which I don't want. Now, I loved this pickup from the Czech Republic so much that I went trying to find the guy again after using it for like a year to see if I could actually import them and sell them in the US, and his website was gone, and I've never been able to find him again. So I love that pickup on my aluminum bass. It's staying there, and I've got that really nice German-made one on my K bass, and that's staying there. So the pickups I'm making now are for my homemade bass back at the shop, and for you. So after seeing all these pickups, you can see where I've gotten the idea and the design for this thing. I took all the best elements, like the German one had the best mounting system, so I used that. The Czechoslovakian one had the best adjustable pole situation, so I used that. And then the American one had the best sort of just simple passive mechanism, so I used that. And then I of course improved upon the grounding box for the course of. Well, why don't I just show you how I built it now? Let's start with the box. It took a little bit of trial and error to figure out the best size and shape and everything, and once I did, I created a simple jig and a couple CNC files so I could do them en masse, and that worked really well. And the other thing I like about this is I can use some smaller pieces of scrap wood and reclaimed wood to cut into these boxes, so it's just, less waste for me. You can see I do all of them on one side, then I flip them over and do them all on the other side. Pretty easy. Of course, there's sanding and a little bit of finishing. The ones made out of lighter wood, I dyed black using this water-based black dye, and then the other ones I just used linseed oil on, and then also waxed them when I was done. Simple set screw is all that's needed to hold my poles in place, so I used one as a template and just drilled holes and let the set screw tap the wood itself. The part that was slowing me down the most was the best way to make my individual poles, and I didn't want to use plastic or 3D print something. I wanted it to be strong, and then it dawned on me that I could use some basic copper pipe. This is 5/8 inch, just regular water pipe that will give me shielding as well as the durability to run the set screws into, and I thought it would look kind of cool too. My cheap metal bandsaw does not cut straight, so I had to, clean the edges up a little bit multiple times to get them to where I needed them. But once I had all these copper pipes set, I was able to just cut some of this basic vulcanized fiberboard that is used to make pickups. And now here's the part that was really another thing that cracked the code for me, is I wanted to have a big pole up top. And now traditionally, pickups are made by using a metal or magnetic core and then wrapping copper wire around it. And I realized that you know, sometimes like on humbuckers, for example, they use screws and poles for the poles, and then they have a magnet that sort of backs them up underneath to give them the magnetism. And I thought, well, why don't I just put the magnet on top and then put the pole underneath, and that way I can have this big wide magnet up top to you know, get all my string movement that I wanted, but then still be able to fit it all into this compact cylinder, the 5/8 inch copper pipe that I'm using. And so that was the big key that made this more accessible for me. Once I figured that out, it was pretty easy to do the rest. So shielding is done, but I also want to make them humbuckers. So I put these little you know, eyelets in to do my soldering, and I just marked one side just arbitrarily with red paint. So that way what I'll do is I wind these coils is I'll always do the start on the red paint and the finish on the other side, and I'll use some color-coded wire to help me along. This is just a little jig I made to help with my spinning because these long skinny poles don't stick well onto my pickup winder, so that just helps me, you know, hold it like a lathe. But so now the idea is I can wrap each of these individually and have them with color-coded wires coming off them, and I'll know which direction's which. And then when I wire them together in the pickup, I can experiment with the direction of the coils to make them humbuckers. This is real time consuming because I had to do each coil individually, unlike most pickups where they're all wound at once. So that kind of stinks. I want to make sure that my pole inside the copper is making good contact with the magnet. So I put a little bit of ink on it and just sanded that whole top down smooth, so I'll know that when I put the magnet on, it's touching the metal core as well as the shielded sides. I wired two of them together sort of like parallel, like in, out, and then I wired the other two in the opposite direction and then connected them in the middle. And so we have in essence like a split humbucker with the direction of the windings changing in the middle. So that should work out good. And you can see I used all quick connect and I left a little extra wire, so anybody that wants to get in there and work on this thing can. It's not like an iPhone where you can't crack it open. And then of course I had to epoxy on the magnets, and I did those alternating north-south, north-south, and I did them separately so they wouldn't be pulling together while the glue is drying. I wanted to create a mounting bracket that would be easy to use and also provide a little bit of extra shielding, as well as a full metal plate that would touch all four strings for grounding down there. And thanks to my friends at Send Cut Send, that was easy. Get your drawings in days that way. And then I used my Thunder Laser fiber laser to etch my logo on there. The mounting bracket required a couple bends, of course, on my brake, but then I also wanted to give a contour to the metal part that goes underneath the fingerboard, because most upright basses, there's a little bit of a contour underneath the fingerboard, so that way it'll make better connection. So after bending all of these 90-degree bends, I just went over to my vise and made some simple, slightly less bent parts there. It was all part of the design too, so now you see it will contour better under the fingerboard. It would have been easier and less expensive to just run a wire from the pickup down to the 1/4-inch jack, but I decided instead to make it a separate cable so it is repairable and replaceable if something goes wrong. A 1/4-inch cable would be too big to fit up underneath your bass in that space, so I had to make it an 1/8-inch jack, which is then welded and grounded to that grounding / mounting plate. So the cable that comes with it, you know, is designed for that, of course. I got this ratcheting screwdriver from metmo.co.uk. It's another small indie tool maker, kind of like me and my square tools. They asked me to check it out, and I have been using it. I haven't used it to its fullest potential yet. I'm still getting used to it, but so far I really like it, because if you've ever used a ratcheting screwdriver, you know that they're just too weak and they usually break. And this is a really well-built, heavy-duty tool. I'm not using it for any kind of crazy torque right now. I'm just running in little screws, but it's nice to not have to keep taking my hand off the screwdriver. And apparently, if you are really torquing it, it has this handle, so you can actually put some torque on that thing, which I'm looking forward to trying too. I'll keep you posted what I feel about this tool, and you can go check them out. They have another product in development right now too. And I'm just using Velcro to mount it under your fingerboard. It comes with the other side of the Velcro as well, so you just want to clean under there really good before you stick that other material on. And here you can see I'm trying it out on my shop base, my homemade base made out of reclaimed wood. And you can see I'm using the little Allen key that comes with it to just set the string height. And there's the grounded piece touching all 4 strings that was important to me. Let's have a listen. I'm going to do a proper sound comparison at the end of this video, but I'm just going to do a quick one here. So this is the ceramic pickups. Now we'll go back to... I had that test set up for like optimum feedback situations, right? So I put the amp up behind the body, I had it up to 11 and I was playing, and I found that the neodymium pickup was more likely to give me a little bit of feedback, and I think it's because the pull is stronger on it, so it was almost acting like an ebow. When you'd hit like a sympathetic note that was just sort of ringing in the room, it would want to take off. And but it didn't seem to be like it was necessarily a problem, because all you have to do is just like let up on the note a little bit or just touch the string and it would stop it. Or you could adjust the height, of course, on the pickup to get the output to work right for you. But really what I wanted to do was test these in an ugly situation, so that's why I brought them back here to my studio to just do a complete direct in, so we can really hear the difference between the pickups that I paid a lot of money for in the past and the ones that I just made now. So for this, I literally just plugged a 1/4" jack into my Scarlett interface, and that's just going right into Logic, and I didn't put anything on it, and I left the EQ the same for all the pickups. I didn't do any boosts or anything. It's just complete dry signal going in, like the worst signal to listen to, right? Because that's what we want to hear. But I did, however, when I do the piezo test, I did have to back down the gain a little bit because that was so much hotter. That piezo sounds real nice like that, doesn't it? But once you start adding volume and putting it in the room, everything changes and it just doesn't work. Well, here, let's get loud for a minute. I'll show you what I'm talking about. Right now, I'm plugged into my magnetic pickup just into the subwoofer and this top here with no EQ on it. And you can see I'm right in front of the speaker. I'm holding the magnet in front of the speaker, no problem, and I can play nice and loud. Now let's switch to the piezo. Normally I would have equipment to, you see here already. Now sure, I'm sitting in front of the speaker so I can move, but those low frequencies start to want to take off. Hear how muddy the low end is, and there's not a lot of definition or clarity. And of course I can EQ all that out, but what happens is when you EQ that out and you EQ out these hums, like that one there, it sounds thin. And then don't even think about using effects pedals. Now just for fun, let's listen to my favorite Czechoslovakian pickup, which I just left on my aluminum bass, so we'll hear it there. It'll sound a little bit different because of that. And then I also tried to use that American-made one, but I just couldn't get it to sit still on my bass, so I just held it with one hand and plucked some strings just to give you something to hear it for. I'd have to build something to hold it into place, and it's just frankly not worth it. I I also thought I'd try my hand in making another little like AB box for people that might want to blend both their magnetic pickup and their piezo pickup, but I wanted to make it better and simpler than the last one. The box is a little big and clunky because it's made of wood, but basically I have an indented knob that, so in the middle it's notched and you can feel it and you can go all the way to one side for one, all the way to the other side for the other. Nice and simple, so let's see what that sounds like. We'll blend my pickup with a piezo. I know that the odds of you, particularly you, yep, right there, being an upright bass player are pretty slim. So if you're not, but you know people that are, go ahead and share this video with them. They might find this interesting and relatable. And if you are one of the few that are actually upright bass players watching this, I did make a small batch of these pickups that are available now for sale at newperspectivesmusic.com. These are all the first run, and I'm also going to accept back orders there right now, so you can go ahead if the small batch that I made sells out, back order them. It'll probably take me a few weeks to a month to make yours, depending upon how. Like I said, I don't think there's a million of you watching, but the plan is to bring this out to the larger world and not just here in my little corner of the world. But I'm starting here first, like a soft launch, like I like to do, because I appreciate and respect everything that you guys have to say. Well. Not everything, but I do seriously like to do this real-time, real-world sort of exploration of ideas and interests, and I'd be very curious to hear what you think in the comments based on what you've seen here.